everybody.
Hi, friends. Well, from beautiful autumn in Salt Lake City,
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
the podcast.
I'm Frank Feldman.
And I'm Dan Beecher.
And coming up on the show today, Dan, we're going to be talking about gay marriage.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like that should be a settled issue, a non-issue, especially here in these United States. It is not that.
Some pissed off people.
And so yeah, we'll be talking about it, and especially talking about it here on the home front, vis-a-vis Utahns, aka mostly Mormons.
Yeah.
Because there's we got some data that we'll be discussing,
And we love data.
We love data. Yeah, absolutely. Brent Spiner, you kidding me?
Oh my God, my favorite. I hate data actually, but I just upset a bunch of people. Sorry guys.
By hating data?
It's Brent Spiner. That's the problem. It's not
Star Trek?
Yeah, it's not early data. I like early data. They should have written him out, because at a certain point, why is the android aging? Right? Why does the android look like he's 60 years old? Well, because Brent Spiner is.
Well, there's a lot of
fine.
issues with androids.
He's allowed to age. Brent Spiner is. But data, it just doesn't make any sense. Anyway.
Welcome to Trek Talk. This is with Dan and Frank.
We should have a spinoff, Dan. All right.
We should not.
All right. Well, before we go spinning off the show, I've got a story here, Dan, coming to us from Canada, where I didn't think things like this happened. Canadians, you're disappointing me. There's a new store up in Midland, Ontario, by the name of Culture Coven. Okay.
Oh.
Coven. That's the key word here. Okay.
Yeah.
The owner, one Ms. Wednesday Anais Dameline. She's a 22-year-old Afro-Indigenous artist, and she's creating a space that sells handmade, sustainable, eco-friendly products, right? From other local artisans who sort of share her ethos, right?
Yeah.
And she needs some graphic design work done. So she reached out to Willow Graphics and Company.
That sounds like a good fit. It's got the word willow. That feels hippy dippy. You never know. I don't know.
They spelled graphics with an X, right?
Oh,
these people, they know how to market themselves. So they're the people to go to when you need a new website built, right? For her business. That's what Ms. Dimmeling was looking for. Well, the owner of Willow Graphics and Company, before responding to the email that was sent to her requesting some help with the website, she looked up the Culture Coven and did a little research. And in fact, she also looked up the definition of coven, which I think is just such a great detail. She's like, what's this word? And she found that the first definition of coven is a collection of individuals with similar interests or activities. But the second one really concerned her because it said an assembly or band of witches.
Skun dun dun. Oh no. Terrifying.
And so she responds to the email and she says, well, she tries to politely decline the business. She says that as a faith-based business, our principles are based on the Bible. I don't feel our two businesses working together is a good fit, and I must decline the opportunity. So she's trying to be polite, but she apparently also is operating Willow Graphics and Company as a faith-based business.
Yeah.
Which probably is not prominently posted on their website, but she doesn't want to be in business with witches. And so she also checked out the website for the Culture Coven and says that on her website, it says, welcome witches. So I'm assuming that it was that was the play she went on with that word. So it wasn't just a gathering, she said. I'm assuming that when she called her business Culture Coven, that it was under the latter description.
Yeah.
Meaning that second definition.
And why wouldn't you be terrified of that?
Oh,
just
my God.
Terrified.
Well, according to Dimmeline, she was going with the first definition. This is getting down to like this dictionary, this little squabble. Yeah. They're like going back and forth. And she's like, a coven means a group of like-minded people. I consider all my artisans to be a coven.
Look, I have no problem believing that she doesn't actually believe in witchcraft or whatever, that she's just having fun with those words and whatever.
And she's earthy, probably.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I mean, she might actually identify as a witch, but that lately, these days, that doesn't mean the thing that it's the Christians fear.
It's not black cats and broomsticks and...
I mean, it might be.
Cauldrons,
it's not flying around.
Cauldrons brewing. Eye of Newt. It's not that stuff, right?
No.
Like it's anyway. So apparently, though, I mean, of course, this caused a big mess for the Willow Graphics and Company on the internet. Also, because apparently Canada has like rules against this kind of stuff.
Oh, skun dun dun.
This could be seen as some sort of like religious discrimination, which could be problematic. Who knows if anything will come of it and sort of civil rights violations and that kind of stuff. But it's definitely not a good look for Willow Graphics. And this is the thing I mean, it's a tough one because like you open up your doors, you know, to your business to the public, right? And you want to just be able to take all the work that comes in, but like, you know, a company that does like graphic design or prints banners or whatnot, like if like some neo-Nazis come in, don't you want to be able to say no? You know,
right?
Like, yeah. I mean, there's, and I know lines can be drawn. Right. And they're tricky lines to draw. But like at a certain point, like I know if I was a business owner, I'd want to retain some rights to be able to be like, I don't want to print out a bunch of swastikas, you know?
Yeah.
But and I'm sure there are business owners who are out there screaming right now and going, you're drawing the wrong line in your head, Frank.
It's tricky.
It is a tricky topic because
I mean, there's a difference between not wanting to print hate speech and not wanting to do a design for a business that's very obviously not about witchcraft that you're terrified of.
I have a feeling if these two actually had just met in person, like if the owner of Culture Coven had just like gone into Willow Graphics and there had been a sort of a meeting, there probably would have been a moment of like, oh, this is just a decent young woman with a business, right?
You say that, but Christians are terrified of the word witch.
Oh,
they are
so true.
Fucking terrified. She's not going to believe it. She's going to be like, this witch is trying to trick me. This witch is trying to trick me into doing something. Satan, get thee behind me.
Yeah, she has dazzled me somehow.
All right. I'm going to take a quick transition here because you know, this has been a discussion about civil rights and you know, discrimination. I'm going to keep us going on that front with an interesting, and also like there is some interesting nuance to this story as well. Here's the thing. I've been to India. India has you know, they have a caste system.
Oh, yeah.
Largely based in Hinduism, but also cultural, as well as religious. And this is a system where you are born into a group and that kind of defines you. And it used to be pretty hardcore. If you're born into the big dog groups, you get to just really look down on and also not even be willing to touch people from the lowest group, which is the Dalits.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. That's legally, theoretically supposed to be done in India. It's not. It's there. I saw it. I had, I talked to people there about it, and they were like, yeah, it's still here.
Yeah.
And it's not like people who were raised with that just abandon it when they leave. And it's not just India either, by the way. It's, all over South Asia, and it's, it crosses over some religious bounds and everything. So anyway, so there have been some instances here in these United States of people claiming to have been discriminated against because they are from the Dalit caste.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And, they were either, so for instance, there's a suit that was filed in 2020 by an anonymous Cisco employee in California who claimed that his Hindu supervisors would cut him out of meetings. They wouldn't promote him. And he claimed it was because he is Dalit. So now California is considering, what do you do with something like this where it's not a protected class at this point, but shouldn't it be? Or maybe it should be, or, there are questions.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay.
And, there have been claims of discrimination in education from lower caste people here in the United States who have professors who are also of Indian derivation and are upper caste.
Oh, wow.
And so to me, that smacks true. I'm sure that kind of discrimination can follow you across the sea.
Yeah.
I don't know how they know. I'm guessing that actually a lot of last names probably give it away. But I actually don't know how they know. I'm sure at least one of our listeners can fill us in on that.
They're probably trained from birth.
Yeah.
Right. Like you grow up, there's probably just things they pick up on or think they're picking up on sometimes even, right?
Who knows?
I'm
fascinated by it. Unfortunately, all of my friends of Indian derivation are from Kerala, and they're Christian.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's a different, I assume a little bit different. Anyway, the other side of this coin is that there are groups that are suing to try to stop the state of California and have tried to stop other entities from making this an illegal kind of discrimination.
Oh, wow.
Now, what's fascinating about this is that so the Hindu American Foundation has filed a complaint on this front because they're saying that it violates the constitutional rights of Hindu Americans by, quote, falsely claiming that Hindu Americans inherently hold discriminatory beliefs in a caste system.
Oh, okay.
And these beliefs and practices are inherent to the Hindu religion. Now, here's the thing. I think they are probably purposefully missing the point, which isn't that, this kind of discrimination is inherent to Hinduism necessarily, but rather that it exists. And when it exists, it should be addressed.
Right.
But they bring up an interesting point, which is that if this becomes widely thought that there is still caste discrimination out there, their point is it could lead to discrimination sort of at large against Hindu people.
Oh, weird.
Because then people will be like, oh, you're part of that hate group Hinduism that treats a whole bunch of people like shit just because they were born into a family that you don't like.
It's interesting that they run immediately to Hinduism, right? It seems like they're kind of exposing themselves, right, in a weird way, right?
Well, traditionally, people who are discriminatory don't really stop to ask too many questions. So if if someone were to take this story, this idea of, Dalit discrimination, and want to paint a group of people with that kind of assholery,
right?
They're not going to like stop and ask, now, is this a Hindu issue? Is this a cultural issue? I need to really know where they're just going to go, oh, Indian people suck because they still do this caste thing.
Yeah.
I just think that there's a lot of nuance to the conversation. Yeah. I think there's a lot of interesting thoughts on it.
Yeah. It seems like the law, though, that would be written, or the phrasing that would be added to existing anti-discrimination law, right? That it could be written without referencing like Hinduism or India, for that matter. In fact, they would want to make it broad and yet specific enough to deal with the issue of caste, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know exactly how you would do that, but I mean, it seems like that would have to be the goal. And that the Hindus
you
shouldn't
could just
be
say
that
you can't discriminate against someone based on family of birth.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Something
You know
simple.
what I mean? Like, there's never a good reason to discriminate against someone because of something outside of that person's control.
Right. Or social status or something like that. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Perceived social status.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at us. We're solving problems, Dan.
We are. We should make all the rules, everybody. That's
come to us. We'll tell you the right.
We'll solve everything.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dan.
Yeah.
This story sort of surprised me. Has to do with Cuba and a national referendum that just passed that approved gay marriage. Protects the right of gay couples to adopt. It's going to promote equal sharing of domestic rights and responsibilities between men and women. So forth and so on. It's a 100-page family code that is sort of wildly progressive in its position on LGBT issues and men and women in the society, and really quite remarkable.
And this is a referendum that like the people voted on?
The people voted on it. So it's actually the government's position. This is apparently it doesn't happen very often. It's kind of rare. But Cuba has in the past, the government will sort of put forth a referendum, an issue that they want the people to have sort of the final say on, right?
Yeah.
Now, as a fairly tightly controlled communist country in the past, whatever the government's position was, people would just vote for it. So these things would just like they would just sail right through, right? And this one there was a little bit of opposition to it because Cuba has a rapidly growing, apparently, evangelical community. 33% of the vote was against the referendum. But that passed pretty well. 67% of the country
if you get
voted for it.
2/3 of the people who are just like, just passing sweeping progressive reform.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Now, a lot of that could have still been habit of just voting with the government's position, right?
I'm fine with that. I'm okay with it.
Well, yeah, especially
in this case.
On this issue. Once this just sort of becomes the norm and the practice, people will start to just kind of settle in and be like, it's really not that big of a deal, right? But it's pretty wild. What was the one thing? Was there anything else in here?
So you're telling me that Cuba can be okay with same-sex marriage? I'm just sort of looking at this thing. With same-sex adoption, all of this stuff, and yet the Cubans in Florida can't sway the vote.
The Cubans in Florida are largely Republican.
I know. Yeah. What is going on?
Yeah, they fled this horror,
Cubans,
right?
Cubans, come get your people. What's happening?
They don't want them. God, I was about to be like, they don't want them back.
No, they don't want. They don't want the American Cubans back.
Yeah, but yeah, it's really quite amazing, and I was a little surprised I just wasn't expecting this. But like
I wasn't either.
Strongly pushed for by the powers that be. The president, he was apparently elated that it passed.
Interesting.
He said, justice has been done. Let's see. It is paying off a debt with several generations of Cuban men and women whose family projects have been waiting for this law for years. So quite remarkable.
Huh. Well, there you go. Well done, Cuba.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna stray not too far from Cuba. I'm gonna head over to Mexico for a story that kept confusing me at every turn. Just because, look, I am used to hearing about cults trying to flee to Central American countries from the U.S. Just to try and find cover for awfulness, and that's what this is. This is a story of that. But this is a Jewish cult, so that is a little bit of an interesting twist to it. Lev Tahor, which is Hebrew for what is it? It's something heart. It's shining heart, pure heart. That's what it is.
Oh yeah, okay.
So this Lev Tahor group was founded by a guy named Rabbi Shlomo Helbrands in Israel in the late 80s. And then he moved to the U.S. He was convicted of kidnapping in 94 and served a couple years in prison. That's a warning sign, I think. If you're a member of a religious group, if your leader was kidnapped for or was imprisoned for kidnapping, probably a bad sign. Maybe you might want to reconsider. Anyway, now they're kind of spread out a little bit over Guatemala and Mexico.
Oh, geez. Okay.
That's also not a great sign when your cult has to flee to less regulated countries,
multiple jurisdictions.
Yeah. And this story is interesting because it literally, there was a group that was in Guatemala. They fled to Mexico. But the Mexican government has just raided them and sort of rescued, or if you're in the cult, stolen some children. So that's good. They literally, some children and some older teenagers have all been removed from the compound.
Cool.
A few people have been arrested. This is a very bad group. Like there was a story about one woman who actually fled the group, got herself to New York, and literally she got herself and her children, to New York.
Mm-hmm.
And the group came and took the children and went back to Guatemala.
Oh my God.
Or maybe Mexico. I don't remember which one. So this is a scary, nasty little Jewish cult. So I'm very glad that they're being tracked. The Mexican government was working with some Israeli citizens, former Mossad agents, who helped with the planning of the raid and everything. They managed to pull off the raid with no violence. They which I think is wonderful. They just went in, sectioned off the kids so that they could get them safely away, and then found the people. There are still a couple people on the lam that they were looking for. So just a totally crazy thing. This is a cult that makes their women and girls as young as 3 wear sort of full length robes to cover themselves and stuff, which plenty of religions do that, but it earned them the name the Jewish Taliban. The nickname. Great. That is.
Yeah. Okay.
So, anyway, gross. Cults are gross. Religion's dumb.
Cults are gross, but that's good news.
Yeah, a little bit.
Get the kids away, if nothing else.
Yeah. I mean, mothers are losing their children, but I'd rather have them in the custody of someone who's not in a horrifying cult.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Dan, would like to do an update to a story, an ongoing story from Russia about what's his name? Patriarch Kirill. Yeah.
Kirill, yeah.
He's the head of the Russian Orthodox Church.
Yeah.
And
he's a swell fella.
Oh, yeah.
That guy.
He's got some really very modern stances on warfare, I guess. And by modern, I maybe modern for 100 years ago.
He's very pro-Ukraine as long as you consider Ukraine part of Russia.
Yeah. So anyway, he came out this week to reassure the Russian soldiers who are being called up in this draft that they're doing. Yeah. 300,000 additional troops are being called up right now. And so he needs to have something to say about this, and kind of specifically to these young men. He says many are dying on the fields of internecine war. The church prays that this battle will end as soon as possible, so that as few brothers as possible will kill each other in this fratricidal war.
Yes, it's brother against brother in the sense that Ukrainians are the same as Russians.
Well, clearly, right? That's what this whole thing is about. But at the same time, the church realizes that if somebody driven by a sense of duty and the need to fulfill their oath goes to do what their duty calls of them, and if a person dies in the performance of this duty, then they have undoubtedly committed an act equivalent to sacrifice. They will have sacrificed themselves for others, and therefore we believe that this sacrifice washes away all the sins that a person has committed.
Oh,
yeah. Baptism.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah, you get clean, baby.
You get to go to heaven completely free of sin. Even
did he stop? He stopped. It sounds like he stopped short of promising virgins when you get there.
He did not do that. But it is an amazing thought, right? Like these ideas of like forgiving people of all their sins and then they die, or they die and all their sins are forgiven and blah, blah, blah. Like, I thought like the whole point of this like heaven, hell paradigm, right, is that good people go to heaven, bad people go to hell. But you can be a bad person, be forgiven your sins, go to heaven. And now there's bad people in heaven.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Except as a manipulation, right? Of the people.
If you've got a concept like heaven and hell and you aren't leveraging it for political gain, what are you even doing?
I mean, yes, exactly.
I mean, clearly, the draft that is happening in Russia is wildly unpopular.
Oh, yeah.
People are, men are fleeing the country, literally.
Yeah.
To try and get away from this draft. They're drafting older guys too, like guys our age and older.
Yeah.
And everybody's kind of horrified. So yeah, Putin called up his buddy Kirill and was just like, what can you do about this? Can we get him into heaven for free? If they join the draft? Can we just give him a free pass?
Oh, I mean, it's so true. Like it's sick. It's obvious. I wonder, it can't, I mean, maybe it works for a couple people, but like people don't want this is not, the 100 years ago. Right.
Right.
The vast majority of people, are they going to fall for something like this? Did they ever fall for it? Right. Like it's such a shallow, empty, obviously cynical promise.
Yeah, but when the promise is made by essentially your pope,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like the top guy in your religion is like, you get into heaven if you do this.
Yeah,
might be worth taking the bet. You know what I mean? Like it might be worth just like, well, if I get to heaven, if I get to the pearly gates and they ask me, I'll be like, look, I was promised heaven. I did the thing. I went to the war. I know I did a whole bunch of bad shit before that, but you have to let me in on this technicality. Your guy promised.
Yeah, but what if it's the Seventh-day Adventist God, right? That's like,
oh yeah, you don't want that God.
You don't want that one. Or the Jehovah's Witness one. It's like you were supposed to conscientiously object. What are you doing?
Yeah,
I wasn't going to forgive your sin.
This is the problem with. It's almost as if you think there's a problem with Pascal's wager. It's almost as if
that it's not just a binary. There. Yeah,
right.
Maybe it's more of a. It should be Pascal's roulette table.
Yeah,
right. One of them's right.
Yeah, exactly. Let's spin the wheel and see where we come up. All right. Well, I'm going to close this out with here. I'm going to bring us all back home to Utah, because here in Spanish Fork, Utah, yes, there's a town called Spanish Fork that we call
pronounced
Spanish.
Fark. Yeah.
Yeah, by many Utahns, Fark is closer to how it's pronounced. Anyway, here in Spanish Fork, there is a school called the American Leadership Academy.
Okay.
Which worries me as a name.
Yeah.
That's not. I've seen what American leaders look like, and yikes. Anyway, the American Leadership Academy, I looked into them, don't seem to have a direct religious affiliation, but just being in Utah County is enough, I think, to call it a religious school. It's a private charter school, and here's how you know that there's something religious afoot. They recently had their fancy homecoming dance, and they have very strict clothing guidelines.
I'm sure they do,
including apparently making the kids, the girls, submit a picture of the dress that they want to wear before they go to the dance.
Oh my God.
Which is that you're controlling things a little too tightly there, Utah Taliban. Anyway, the girls of course complied and then showed up, and a whole bunch of them were kicked out anyway.
What?
And now, here's the thing. There is some disagreement about the number. The students claimed that around 60 students were not allowed to their homecoming dance. The school, for their part, says that's ridiculous. It was only 14 students that were turned away. 14 is still a big number, school.
That's not a number to be proud of.
No.
Especially after this process, right? Like,
right? And they're coming at this from they're like, we studied the video. They literally said that they went to the video to get proof of this. And here's the thing. Let's just use their number. Let's just say that only 14 students were turned away. Okay. These were girls who did submit their dresses, and many of them claim that they submitted it. But of course, the picture that they submitted was just the picture from, whatever website they got the dress from.
Oh. Okay.
So when they wore it on their bodies, it looked a little bit different.
Uh-oh.
And suddenly, no, absolutely not. The Nazis I shouldn't say Nazis, the very mean school representatives.
Why not say
at
Nazis?
The door? What's that?
Why not say Nazis?
Yeah, I don't like watering down the term Nazi.
Okay.
I feel like we should reserve that for actual Nazis, considering we've got plenty of those around. Anyway, yeah, the dress goblins were out in force and were decidedly grumpy about it. Which, by the way, it's a dance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, even if you feel like you need to turn, the kids broke the rules, the dress is too revealing or whatever.
Oh my God.
There's a nice way to say, oh gosh, I'm sorry, we can't do it. But apparently they were just grumpy Gus's and turned so many girls away. I'm going to guess it's more than 14 and less than 60. Because kids can exaggerate, and the school is trying to get away with something.
And there might have been some solidarity as well. Like,
yes, indeed.
You know, a group of friends who were like, well, fuck you. Right. And so very possible 60 girls didn't go. It's sick.
It's so stupid.
I just like,
in the end, it's just, we still live in an era where monitoring like proper clothing is important to some people.
Here's the deal. These are kids, Mormon kids, right? Like, we know this, right?
Yeah.
Whose parents are sending them to this school and also buying the dress for them, right?
Yeah.
I would love to see what these dresses actually look like, because it's like, there's no way these were like super quote unquote immodest dresses.
Absolutely not.
Right. Like
you guys have no idea how goofy this must have been.
This was a little too much shoulder showing.
Yeah.
Right. The strap wasn't 3 inches wide. It was 2.5 inches wide. Right.
Or a spaghetti strap.
Or it was a spaghetti strap.
But like, we're not talking about deep cleavage. You know, we're not talking about really short that, maybe a butt cheek was exposed or anything. Not remotely.
Nothing.
We are talking about, and by the way, the homecoming queen was one of the one of the girls turned away.
Oh, her special day ruined.
Yeah. We are talking about such modest dresses. Like, you all listening at home would be shocked at what we're talking about.
These are families that know the expectation, right? They know what it is, and the parents signed off on it. Like, at a certain point, and also like honest to God, like, if you don't want kids running around in skimpy dresses, if you don't want kids messing and fooling around, right? Don't have prom.
Don't have
Just
kids.
The
truth is, if you're that uptight, fucking don't reproduce. Do you know what teenagers are? You were a teenager once. You know what those hormones are like. Just don't do it. Just don't make any.
Yeah, that's amazing. No, I'm talking about sort of as an officially sanctioned thing, right?
Yeah.
Don't have it. Just don't do prom. You know what prom is, right? It's the same thing you're saying. You know what it is. Don't have it. It goes a certain way every single time. It doesn't matter the community. It doesn't matter who's involved. It's the hormones. Yeah. And you got everybody all, dressed up nice, looking their best. Everybody's hair is perfect, right?
Or you can, there are other ways to get around this. You can have a medically themed homecoming where everyone has to wear scrubs.
Jesus. Was this homecoming or was it prom?
Yeah, this is a homecoming.
Oh, well, same thing.
Same
Don't
thing.
have homecoming.
Yeah. Oh my God. Anyway, if you would like to write into us and I don't know, send us pictures of your homecoming dress, please feel free. Podcast at thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave us a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442. Stick around. There's more show coming up.
Well, Frank.
Dan.
There is a new crop of young white assholes.
Oh boy.
Who are young men,
of course,
who have taken over the sort of right wing. Literally, you and I would never encounter these guys if we didn't do this show, because they're only on places like, whatever Trump's Twitter version is, and just like all of the right wing spaces that have sort of decided that they're gonna Twitter wasn't echo chambery enough for them, so they created their own little things. Anyway, there's a guy named Dalton Clodfelter.
Sorry,
I didn't make that up.
I shouldn't.
Somebody else
made
him up.
We're more substantive than just laughing at the name. So proceed.
We're really not that much more substantive than that. I laugh at that name. Yes, Dalton Clodfelter, who, I don't know why people are listening to him, but a whole bunch of people are. He is, well, I'll just let him describe himself.
Okay.
Just trigger warning. I mean, there should be a trigger warning on all of the audio that we play. Yeah. But yeah, he's not going to say nice things about women.
Ooh.
Women are dumb voters. Women have a place in a society, and that place is in the home. That place is being subservient to their husbands. That place is looking to the husband as Jesus looks to God, or as the church looks to Jesus. This is how the true structure of the home is supposed to be developed. The facts of the matter are, women are dumber than men. Women should be subservient to men. Women have no place in male activities. Women have no place of partaking in the workforce. Women have no place of partaking in politics. Women have no place outside of the home. The home is a virtuous place for women. Women should be happy when they are in the home. Women should be grateful when a man puts a roof over her head and supplies the family with food and resources and energy and structure. That is what women should be thankful for, ladies and gentlemen. And a lot of you are going to be very upset with this. A lot of people are going to say, how dare he talk about women that way? Does he not have a daughter? Would he talk to his wife this way? Blah, 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 blah. You're losing your mind over the truth, over facts, over logic, over reason. You're losing your mind over the Word of God. The Bible calls women to a particular place in the home. The Bible calls women to be subservient to their husbands. Men make stronger leaders. Men are just better. Men are awesome. I am a firm believer in the patriarchy. I'm a misogynist. You could definitely claim that. You could say I'm a sexist. Absolutely.
Doesn't he sound nice?
Yeah. Gross.
Yeah. There's not much to say about it.
I mean, there's a little bit. I'm sitting there, I'm listening to it, and I'm like, okay, what do Christians actually believe? Check, 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 check,
yeah.
check, check, check. Thank you, Dalton Clodhopper, or whatever your name is.
Clodfelter.
Clodfelter. I like Clodhopper. The tone, the only difference between what he is saying and what you would hear at church on Sunday is the tone of voice.
Yeah. And he says things like women are dumb.
Yeah.
Men are great.
Sure.
But those are just sort of the underlying he's just saying the quiet parts out loud.
Yeah. It's essentially what you would have to believe about women in order to be like, yeah, their place is in the home as well. Right. Like, it's actually some nice dot connecting that he's doing for everybody.
Yeah.
Which is, you can't have it both ways, Christians. You can't be like but women are wonderful. We love, because this is like the Mormon stance, right? Oh yeah. The blessed daughters of our Heavenly Father, right? So special. That's why they stay in the home, is because they're so special, right? It's like, no, if you're telling somebody that they're not allowed to leave the home, there must be something deficient, right?
If you're telling them that they have because so much of what he said resonated with like things that I heard growing up in Mormonism. Yeah. Things like, women have a very, Mormons would say it differently, of course, but women have their own very special sacred place in the church.
Yeah.
And this is how they respond to when people say, why don't women have the priesthood that you give to all of the men, including the real dipshits? And it's like, no, they have their own very special responsibilities. And it's like, okay, you just think that women are worse. You just think men are better.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the thing that he said about women should look I don't remember exactly. Women should look to men the way Jesus looks to God and the way the church looks to Jesus. That's almost exactly what is said in the Mormon temple ceremony. There was something about women cleave to your husband as he cleaves to the Lord or whatever like that.
Yeah.
It's something along those lines.
Yeah. I mean, it's biblical, right? Isn't it based on some, anyway.
Yeah. It's there.
This is what he was told growing up. Again, different tone of voice. He just learned the lesson. That's all. He's just repeating it.
He's just saying it all out loud, which you're not supposed to do. All right. Well, we had some folks write into us and call into us.
Indeed.
Rob from Sydney, Australia wrote in, "G'day, Frank and Dan. Greetings from the land of Oz. After hearing your wonderful rant a few weeks ago about the J-dubs doing house calls, I had to tell you about a lovely neighbor we had some years ago. She was a widow in her late 70s, and butter wouldn't melt in her mouth." That is an idiom that I am not aware of.
Butter wouldn't melt in her mouth.
I assume it means she was good.
Oh, okay.
We don't have that one here.
Yeah.
Anyway, butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. Everyone loved her.
Okay.
She spent her spare time in the garden, and one day a couple of brown-suited dudes with short haircuts walked up her front path, whereupon she yelled, "Are you religion?" One of the dudes mumbled something. She then screamed at the top of her lungs, "Well, fuck off and don't ever come back." The dudes made a very hasty retreat right out of our street. I was watching from next door and just about pissed myself laughing. I'm so glad I live in a country where she could do this without risk of being lynched. I have learned from her and now use the same lines if I get God bothered at home. Oh, that's delightful.
I like God bothered. Yeah, there's something really like you want to be the nice old person, right? So you can do that.
Oh,
and
no.
it has great effect. Right?
Oh yeah, you want to be beloved in the neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, I do kind of look forward to walking the balance between grumpy old man and beloved old man. I feel like I can walk that line.
We'll see.
We'll see.
You'll think you are.
Maybe I'll just be an asshole. It's fine either way. I don't know. I'll be old. What's anybody gonna do?
Then that's the attitude right there. Asshole.
Yeah.
That's how I know which side you're gonna land.
Fine. Great.
Because you don't care.
Yeah. Anyway, along the same lines, Amber from Indianapolis wrote in to say, "Hey, Frank and Dan, thought I'd tell you about my hilarious hack to get rid of missionaries quickly." Apparently Amber wasn't willing to yell at them. Today I had Mormons come to my door while I was breastfeeding my daughter.
Oh, yeah.
I thought about hiding until they left, but then decided to answer, "Booba out." It was well worth it. They were so uncomfortable as soon as I opened my door. One kept saying he was sorry, and the others just stood in awe. They're good boobs, LOL. Or shock. I couldn't tell. I like the shock and awe approach. I asked if they wanted to chat, but they said that they really didn't want to intrude and went on their way.
Oh my God.
I felt proud in that moment. Anyway, thought I'd send you guys, send that in as you guys just talked about it a few weeks ago.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love it. Yes, tits out. That is definitely a way to make Mormon boys scurry off. It is a little bit cruel considering they can't close the bathroom door when they go to the bathroom.
Oh.
So they don't have any way of relieving the tension that you have created in their poor little teenage brains.
They find ways.
They
find moments. So God bless you.
God bless. Yes, that's delightful. We have a voicemail, do we not?
We do indeed. This is a listener responding to our conversation last week about the equinox and sort of the cycle of the year.
Okay.
Hey, Frank and Dan. This is Elizabeth calling from Portland, Oregon. I just finished listening to your Equinox episode, and I wanted to comment on the Mabon segment. I classify myself as an atheist, tree-hugging dirt worshiper, and while I don't believe in any gods or higher powers, I do believe the planet Earth is our mother and science is scripture. The Wheel of the Year not only marks the changes in seasons, but we can use it to mark the changes in our lives as people or even projects. The spring Sabbaths are the time to plant your seeds, be they physical seeds of your garden or metaphorical seeds to plant a project. As the wheel turns to summer, you nurture your garden/project, and the seeds you have sown begin to grow. In the fall, we begin to harvest our bounty and start to plan for a long winter. And during the dark months, we use that time to reflect on the past year and make plans for the next. It makes sense that many of the listicles you read about Mabon say to start journaling during this time of the year as the cycle begins to wind down. It's the time to reflect and be thankful for what the year has provided. Or, if you're living through these crazy modern times, it's a good time to start prepping and planning for the apocalypse that the Christian extremists want to bring on. Anyways, just wanted to give you some insight from a quote-unquote pagan. Thanks for all the work you do on the podcast. Wish you guys the best.
Well, thanks, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
It's funny. All of that sounds very nice, and I'm totally fine with it, except that I always get a little, as someone who left a religion with a whole bunch of fucking rules about when everything is supposed to happen and why and all this stuff. Like, if that serves you, I think that's great, but it so rubs me the wrong way to think of, like, this is the time of this. Like, okay, that works great for some people and won't work for other people. And it's just like, yeah, take what's useful to you, and that's fine.
Oh, totally. Because this also doesn't sound like if anything, this sounds like the thing that you do have a difficulty with, which is the idea of spirituality, spiritual but not religious, right? She's found a spiritual connection to the seasons and to the earth, and that's beautiful, right? Yeah. Like, I really appreciate that, because it's like I'm not going to do it personally, right? Sorry, Elizabeth, I'm not making fun, right? It's just I don't feel that connection. The fact that she does, I think that's awesome, because consciousness and life and everything, it kind of sucks, and so you kind of just have to find like the things that make it work for you. I think it's great. It's wonderful.
If you found a way of living that makes you happy and that serves you well, more power to you.
And that's why I wanted to play this one this week, was just that idea of like, go find the thing that makes your life function right and feel right to you. And like, this is like harming absolutely nobody. Right. And so, my whole objection
is just that, like, someone might hear that and think, you know what, that could be a really interesting way of doing things. And then they get hung up on, like, look, I'm neurodivergent. I get hung up on certain technicalities and whatever. So, like, if winter ended up being or fall ended up being a good time for me to start a project, but I had this thing in my head that you're supposed to start it in spring because that's when you plant your ideas or whatever, I would get my brain would get a little bit scrambled by it or whatever. So so I personally have to reject this kind of thinking. But I'm hearing nothing in here that is dogmatic, right? Like there's no like, oh my goodness, you didn't start your project in the spring. You have to wait. You started your project in October. No. Yeah. The wheel. You must conform to the wheel. Mabon, what are you doing? Dan. Oh, I'm sorry, Dan. Yeah. It's look, if that's what you're up against, I'm so sorry. Not everybody's brain works the same. That's all I'm getting at. It's fine. Go enjoy. Happy Mabon to you. Yes. Anyway. We had one other writer in. This is from Kevin. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Kevin has a whole bunch of interesting points that I really liked, but we're running long anyway. So Kevin says, hi, I am a new listener who came across your podcast due to a random Spotify recommendation. Welcome. Thank you, Spotify, I guess.
Well done, Spotify.
By the way, will you guys, if you like the show, will you tell somebody about it? Will you help spread the word?
Like it on your platform?
Yeah, that'd be nice. Anyway, Kevin goes on to affirm. You remember we talked about, we had someone write in to ask about swearing, when in court or whatever, as opposed, and we talked about how we can choose to affirm if we want to, but it might out us as something that we don't want to be outed as. So.
Right.
Kevin says, to affirm rather than swear does not necessarily out someone as an atheist. Quakers affirm because they believe that to swear an oath, so help me God, is to take the Lord's name in vain. I have an aunt in Idaho who's very against swearing for the same reason. She is deeply religious and does not want to bring the Lord's name and reputation into an earthly dispute.
Interesting.
On your question about other countries, I live in Australia and other than when interacting with either the American embassy or American courts, I have never had to swear. All of our forms have much more secular wording, and in court, we simply promise to tell the truth. I thought that was very interesting. So there you go. Do we have some folks to thank?
We do indeed, Dan. We have a new patron over on Patreon, a new deacon, in fact, by the name of Derby Cat.
Well, thank you, Derby Cat. Congratulations. You are now endowed with all of the same magical powers that Mormons give a 12-year-old boy. Whew. So you should feel very proud of that.
So much power and responsibility.
Yeah. As Uncle Mark from the How to Heretic used to say, boys outrank their mothers in the Mormon church at age 12. So you outrank all of the people listening to the show who don't have magic powers. Congratulations.
And if you'd like to join this bunch of powerful people, go to our website, thankgodimatheist.com, and click on the support tab, and that'll take you over to Patreon or PayPal, however you want to support. And as always, Dan, we have our top donor to thank, our Lord and Savior, Davis.
More show coming up.
Dan?
Yes.
I want to talk about something that's close to my heart today.
Okay.
Oh,
is it your lungs?
That would be some things close to my heart.
Sure.
No, gay marriage.
Oh. You got gay married.
I got gay married. I got let into the club.
Yeah.
Of marriage. And boy, it's just wonderful.
Yeah.
Marital bliss is a special kind of bliss.
Well, I mean, you got a good man. You got you a good man.
Yeah, for sure. But, we kind of commented about it at the beginning of the show. There are forces in the United States that would love to see gay marriage go away.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that they did not want.
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't want it. As a matter of fact, here in Utah, gay marriage came about thanks to a lawsuit, Kitchen v. Herbert.
Yeah.
That was ruled on and made marriage instantly available to Utahns, even before the thing happened for all of Americans.
Exactly. Yeah.
And at that time, Utahns were very much not into the idea.
Yeah.
Or rather, were majority majority opposed to gay marriage.
Yeah. Well, just in 2004, the state actually passed an amendment to the Constitution that defined marriage as being between a man and a woman. And
that's right.
That sailed through. Right.
Yeah.
And that's just 18 years ago.
Yeah. So yeah, and as recently as 2014, which is when that Kitchen v. Herbert decision came down. Yeah, it was below 50% approval. I don't remember exactly what it was. It was like 57% opposed gay marriage.
Yeah. Yep.
So almost 60%. And it feels like it hasn't been that long since 2014.
I mean, it really hasn't, It's just 8 years.
Just 8 years, but boy, here's the truth. What happens is people don't want it, and then it happens, and everybody goes, nothing has changed in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think things shift a bit.
Yeah.
So a new poll has come out. This was by the Deseret News and the Hinckley Institution. These are both very, very Mormon.
Yeah. Mormon newspaper and political think tank or
Yeah.
political institute, whatever, at BYU. The Hinckley, isn't that where it's centered?
Yeah, probably. I don't know.
Hinckley Institute. I think that's actually University of Utah, isn't it?
Anyway, since we don't know anything about it, let's just glide safely past that and just talk about the results of their poll, which was conducted by a group called Dan Jones and Associates. They're a big polling institution here, or company here in Utah.
And just to interject, Hinckley Institute of Politics is a bipartisan institute located at the University of Utah.
Great.
Just so we
have
so
the
correction.
About that.
It's there.
Yeah.
We know what it is.
Okay, great. So here's the thing. They polled Utahns across the state, and what they came up with was that when asked this question, I'll say the exact question, and then we'll get to the results. Do you agree or disagree that marriages between same-sex couples should be recognized by the law as valid with the same rights as traditional marriages?
Wow.
So we're just talking legal. We're not talking whether it's morally right or wrong, which would change some of these answers probably.
Yeah.
But we're talking about just the law and whether they should have the same rights as traditional marriages. And what came back was that 72% either strongly agree, that's 50%, strongly agree, and 22% somewhat agree.
Wow.
So
that's remarkable.
72%.
Yeah.
And with 50% of Utahns strongly agreeing.
Yeah.
That's pretty potent right there. That is some strong stuff.
Yeah. It makes sense. It's like, it's what you said before, which is something like this passes, it becomes legal. People don't see the world falling down around them. And so they're just like, yeah, okay. Right. But
and they've got a gay cousin and they've got a gay uncle.
That's where I was going, the number of gay kids coming out in Mormon families has only accelerated with time. Right.
Yeah.
And so like Mormon families, just like families everywhere, are having to confront the issue if it's an issue that they need to confront, or they just accept it. Right. But like they're dealing with it, and they're like, okay, well, I still love my kid. Right. And more they're seeing that that's the response of their neighbors to the same situation. And they're feeling, good about it.
Yeah.
And, I'm gay married. My Mormon parents are, in their 80 and 77. Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they really think about it, but they're at least kind about it.
Yeah.
Right. Like they ask about Dave whenever, we talk on the phone. How's Dave?
They don't ask you not to bring Dave to family events.
Exactly. Yeah. That's where they were, 20 some odd years ago when I came out to them. Right. But time just kind of makes these things work a little bit better. Right. And
Absolutely.
my gay friends who are my same age, who are married, you know, the couples that I know, their Mormon parents are all just like fine with it. And that's an older generation, right?
Yeah.
Like it is the wheel has turned on this issue. And Jesus Christ, like the Senate just needs to pass that fucking law that they're sitting on.
Well, and so that's the thing. There is a law, you know, people fear our current U.S. Supreme Court.
As they should.
The SCOTUS right now is terrifying and immutable at this point. They are, you know, we're not going to get rid of them anytime soon.
Right.
So, you know, by a hair margin, Democrat-controlled Congress is trying to make sure that the legalization of gay marriage is codified in the law rather than just the product of a Supreme Court decision.
Correct.
Because this Supreme Court is very happy to overturn past Supreme Courts.
Yeah. Which has not been the norm.
No.
Yeah, no. And I just heard the Senate has delayed the vote again till after the election. They don't want it to be an election issue. They just want it.
Right.
I think they probably have the votes and they're just waiting. I hope they have the votes.
It passed the House. And here's an interesting fact.
Yeah.
All of the Utah House members voted for it.
I know. It's crazy. And that one blew my fucking mind.
And you know what? The Utah numbers reflect the national numbers pretty strongly. I feel like this should be made to be an election issue.
It should be, but I get that like they have a couple Republicans who they probably have their vote, but just don't want to vote on it now. Yeah. Right. Like, yeah, they could and they should, but these guys or gals,
right.
To, you know, be so gender inclusive. They can't. They know the right vote and they're willing to vote correctly on it. They also know their political risk back at home. So, you know, whatever.
I just feel like the Democrats could make some serious hay with this.
I know, but they also need those Republicans' votes. Because this one isn't a 50-50 thing with Kamala Harris coming in to break the tie. They need 60 votes.
Yeah.
And they only have 50. So they got to get some of those Republicans. And, you know, there's a lot of interesting things that happen in those lame duck sessions, right? Is that what you call them? The session.
Yeah.
Sorry, the session after the election, right?
Right.
People kind of get to vote a little bit more of their conscience in that little moment. And that's probably why they're doing it there.
Yeah. And what they're doing is probably the right thing, which is prioritizing actually getting the damn thing passed over political gain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is amazing. And, you know, we should all feel great about that. Other than we need the political gain also.
Yeah.
So it's tricky. It's a tricky thing. But yeah, I mean, it looks like it'll probably pass. And that hopefully that what's heartwarming about it is that even Mormons, like if Mormons should be considered a pretty strong bellwether for this sort of like where go Mormons, there are the crazy Republicans. And so this is actually a really heartening thing to see. You know, the only 14% of Utahns strongly disagree with the legal recognition of same-sex marriages.
Yeah,
that's a pretty low number. So you'll get 9% that somewhat disagree, but only 14 strongly disagree. And then you got 5% who, for whatever reason, don't know. Like, really? You're unclear on this issue at this time? We've had a lot of time.
I need to think a little bit more on it.
I just don't know.
Or like, what? What's gay?
Right? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Yeah. I don't know. It's an interesting one. We'll see what happens, but that does feel heartening to know that even in Utah. It's
In
that strongly.
Dumb old Utah.
Yeah. Big, dumb, idiot Utah. Congratulations. At least we have that. So anyway, if you would like to tell us about how things are going in your neck of the woods, feel free to write into us, podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave us a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
Yeah, go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist. Click the like button.
And if you'd like to join one of our members-only lounges, they're really cool, inclusive places. You can do so. Go to our website, thankgodimatheist.com/members only.
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much to the Red Rock Hot Club for the use of their music.
And thanks to Gordon Johnston for the use of his music.
And thanks to all of you for tuning in. We sure do appreciate you.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.